So we're going to dive straight in. So I'm Rebecca Garrett for everyone, well, most people that know me. So I'm a head of teaching and learning at Trinity College. But, you know, Carly and I have been mucking around with AI.
Playing around with AI.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm Kylie Lester. I'm at Xavier College. I'm a maths teacher out there, senior maths teacher. So, yeah, just getting into... So I'm on the AI committee at my school, and I jumped on board with that just to see where this is going to go. And it's been an interesting journey so far. So, yeah, still learning.
And part of the journey and the way we met each other was actually through the MASA collaborative communities. And so we met several times and kind of chatted about, you know, what's AI looking like and bounced around ideas. So that community was like really cool.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it anyway, and I got lots of inspiration and we were able to bounce around ideas. So this is where many of the things I know from my perspective came from.
Yeah.
So it was good to have a sounding board in that instance. So we're going to take you through the two journeys we had. And kind of get you to play with that and ask questions. With this forum, we really do want you to ask questions along the way, but it's also at the end is completely fine.
Yeah.
Now let's see if the touchscreen's working. No.
Okay. Maybe may have set it up.
So we want to get a bit of a sense for the room first, so we know who we're speaking to. And so we're going to do a bit of traffic lights. Might be deliberate later, you'll see. So how open are you to advertising AI tools? So you're in the classroom. Do you go, oh, did you know you could try and use this? This would make you green. You're very open, okay? Or do you go, oh, yeah, but definitely use only this one here. This one's great. Or do you go, oh, no, AI tools will be no use. Don't use them. How open are you? Completely closed to completely open or somewhere in the middle? Where are we? We can do thumbs maybe for I like that. So this is your green to go. And no, I would prefer to never tell them about it. And I'm somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
I've got a broken thumb, so I've got to
I love it. Okay.
I think I'm I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm there because I don't want them to use it. I don't think about the use of it.
Yeah. Okay. And that is definitely,
Likely.
It's more habit, like as in you're used to doing things a certain way. All right. Do you want to go to the second?
Especially with maths as well, because it's like, how does it get used in maths and how can we use it?
There's a time factor. I think I'm in a similar position to you. That I'm not really using it, and I'm not trying to actively discourage my students from using it, but the ones that are using it may be using it the wrong way, and I just haven't had the time to sit down and actually work out how do I adapt some of this stuff that I've been using previously to actually make it work in AI world.
Sorry, on the broader scale, I heard a whisper, and I think it's true, that a college, a renowned college in the state, has banned AI. And how they did that, I'll never know.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? And really, AI has been in the world for a long time. So it's hard to lose.
Yeah, I know, when it's a future that we're moving into, and if kids go into the world not understanding what it can do and the ethical use of it as well, then are we really setting them up? So success. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's go question number 2. So then how confident are you teaching students how to use it?
Oh, God.
Yeah, okay. Which way is that one going, Tom? So the 2 questions are so important. You can't just ask one, because you could be confident to sell it to them. But if you don't know how to use it yourself, then really, we're teachers. Yeah. We want to teach. So this kind of defines, I think, where you actually sit in the first question. So where this workshop's not going to really break down too much the AI tools. We'll talk about different questioning you can use and things like that. But we will look at the strategies we've used
for assessment and
you'll see
stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Big question.
big question. Yeah. So how are we going to ensure that we're not breaching our academic integrity guidelines when we're saying, AI is out there, AI is being used? And so at my college, that was our biggest question, is what do we do? How do we get the kids to own up to what they're doing? So have you used any strategies at schools, your sites, to look for that, where they're doing it?
We found that you can grab a portion of what they've written and dump it into ChatGPT
Yep.
and ask it, "Did you write this?" And it will
Come out with something.
yes or
Yeah.
no. So that I think I've mentioned that to students
Yeah.
who might think that they can get away with just having it spill out their investigation
Yep. Yeah.
for them, and rather than point out to them that we can do. I mean, it's clunky, but it's at least a check. And we've seen some writing where it's really very generic,
Yep.
without nothing wrong, but without actually getting to the heart of what you want them to be able to say. And you put it in there, and it's written by ChatGPT.
Yeah, which is not their own work. This is a challenge, isn't it?
It's defined that.
But it's not always super accurate with the did you write this?
Yeah.
As are the
Turn it in or whatever you
because I do think it has some sort of place. Like if you've got something that's being reported back as 99% AI generated, there's usually at least some AI.
Yeah.
We're at our school, we're taking a bit more of a approach from the other end in terms of getting the evidence along the way,
Yeah.
rather than trying to do anything at the back end because it is that bit more inconsistent. I'm kind of talking to students about, if I'm getting to the end and you've handed up your final piece and there's paragraphs that are really vague and very flowery. I've noticed AI is quite flowery.
Yeah.
Out that I'm looking at going, this doesn't quite feel like you.
Yeah.
And I haven't got all these other things that I asked for along the way, then I can't verify it as yours. I'm not saying that you used AI, but I can't verify it as yours.
Yeah.
So we're doing things like making them upload it to OneDrive and sharing a live link with us, which then records the version history. So we can see it being built on
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah, that's cool.
to revert it back. So you can see it, 2,000 words show up in 10 minutes.
Yep.
And then a lot of us are starting to try and develop like plan documents along with it. I am struggling with that in maths. This is something that maths reports have usually used in the past, not like English essays. But that's mostly how my school's been approaching it, is with verification along the way, multiple check-ins from the site as they work in the assignment.
I've actually done some research before the AI stuff started becoming bigger about there's a tool called Cabinets that was initially aimed at university students where you're supposed to draft and write your essays in there. And so I was actually able to look at like the keystroke analytics to understand whether they were like actually generating it from scratch and like a well-planned essay, poorly planned essay, like they're just writing it, or they're copying it for another resource.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
So you can like actually get profiles of what that sort of entry looks like.
That's fascinating. That's that one.
I've got this question on the two ends. First of all, if you know your students and what they're capable of, inverted commas, and then at the other end, we have to be very conversant with what aims to what. We have to know our students what they're capable of naturally from their own circuitry, makeup. And AI is a very powerful and dangerous tool. We have a very dangerous tool in our hands.
Yeah.
Very dangerous worldwide.
But then so powerful about educate, like it can help learning. And this we've got to have use the right well.
balance.
Yeah.
Social media is very
Yep.
dangerous.
Yes.
Also very useful.
Yes.
In the hands, it's
Good.
Yeah.
I think it's a little dangerous to use it.
Yeah.
To be saying, to be trying to rely on knowing our students, because there's a lot of students. Like my school, I have about 180 students. I can't know.
And for the first report, you don't know how they write because you don't teach them in English, but I know what you mean. this is the checkpoints and why that sort of method would work.
Yeah.
To be able to,
So we had all same sorts of questions in that at my school. So I was part of a team that put together this academic integrity flowchart. So it incorporates plagiarism as well. I've got copies here you can take with you. But we sort of started out and it was, okay, so if we read an assessment task and go, this looks like it's being used or AI is being used or it's plagiarized. We'll talk more about the AI stuff, not the plagiarism stuff. It was more about, well, what can teachers do so that they don't just report it to our house directors of teaching and learning and they can control it in their classrooms. So start off by submitting it into, turn it in, check the authenticity of the document and refer back to drafts. But if we've done all that and we're still thinking there's some stuff going on in this assignment, we found that if you just ask the students, have you used it? Our kids are pretty good. You put them on the spot, you say, look, I've read this, I don't actually think it's your work. Have you used AI tools to generate this work? They generally turn around and go, yeah, but I wasn't sure that I was how to do it because we haven't been taught properly and that sort of stuff. So if they admit to an academic breach, teachers can follow this flowchart. And so we say, okay, so what have you used? Have you used ChatGPT or you used Copilot, whatever it is? They admit to using it. We can ask the students then to provide a copy of their prompts that they have put into ChatGPT or Copilot, whatever they've used, and looking at the prompts that they've used. If the prompts are more about helping them get ideas for what they need to write about, and it's using as a critical friend, I like to call it, then you can kind of look at it and go, okay, well, that's not you asking it to write it for you, so I can see how you've unpacked that. And then you can, okay, if that's, we can then mark originality against the performance standards and it gets submitted, it goes, yeah, fine. If they can't provide us with the prompts of they've used, then we need to check that verification that it is their own work. So to do that, we've got a box in the bottom we'll get to in a minute, but one of the ones that we do is put the whole assignment into ChatGPT and then ask it to give us 3 questions to generate that'll tell us that it is actually, that they can write a reflection on or they can answer to show that they do understand the content that they've been doing and they can talk about it, and that should generate an idea that, yeah, they know what they're doing. But yeah, so to verify and understand the use, if we are satisfied that they can verify their own work, we mark as normal. And then if we're not satisfied that the student can verify that it's their own work, what we do is we mark the parts of the assessment that we say, yeah, this is yours. The rest of it doesn't get marked, and then you report it back. The SACE, obviously house directors, parents and that get informed, but for the juniors, it's like watching out for patterns of what they're doing and how they're using it. But yeah, to verify students' work, which is the really important part. So having the students write a reflection using Exam.net, I don't know whether you've used that, but it's a lockdown browser. So it's really good. You can say, after they've done their assessment, so they've written their folio, and like everybody sits that 15-minute reflection to just summarise what you found, what your results were, what you thought your results, interpret your results, analyse that sort of data. And you can then read that reflection, and there'll be enough in there to know what they've actually talked about. They've had a good understanding of what they're doing. Put it back into AI and generate the 3 questions to ask the students to answer. So you can have that one-on-one conferencing with them and say, all right, I've got 3 questions for you, ask it, and then the answers that they should give you should show you that they understand it. Mm-hmm. Verbally explain the key concepts that are in their task, and checkpoints are very important. So we've got the checkpoints along the way. Make sure you've got checkpoints and we're marking those. So that's, what we've kind of put together at our college to kind of, make sure that we're verifying that it's their work and keeping them honest, but also so we can say, we have a open transparency use of using AI. We know that you're using it, but let's encourage you to use it ethically, which is what we're going to get into.
Yeah. All right. During horse
So that's
Very so the example that I'm going to show you is I looked more from a student perspective. So in my role, I was meeting with lots of students that were plagiarizing, but they actually either didn't know that it was plagiarism or AI use, because they were using Grammarly, and then it was converting the actual formats to third person because they had the advanced version, or they're using Quillbot. Do we all know Quillbot? Makes it paraphrases. So they use that. And so when I would come and talk to them about, okay, well, it's not your own work, they go, what do you mean? I've been using this for ages. And I'm like, oh, okay. Or other times, you know, I'd have many, and it's horrible to say, but they would cry about it because it's their grades, they're attached to it, and they really thought they were doing the right thing. And so it made us reflect and go, well, hang on a second, we're not communicating really clearly exactly what the expectations are. What are you allowed to do? By not talking about it, we're saying that it might be okay or it might not be okay. You know, which way is it? So I sat with some students and I said, well, you know, what do you need? And some of them said, I won't touch it because I don't want to get in trouble. And these were our wonderful kids, like really, really good kids. And others were like, well, no one's told me. So, you know, like, so we needed to make some guidelines to make that a bit clearer for these kids, because you don't want kids to be afraid of AI. It's around and it's going to be around for a long time. So if AI tools were allowed, is my question, when could we use them? So maths assessment, when would you picture them using it? We're obviously thinking about an investigation. When would you expect them to, you know, what's possible?
Well, one place where I have used or what suggested use of it is when, like, you know, in an investigation where the last part of the investigation might be an extension
like that.
topic, where they've got to take the sort of concepts that they've been working on, but do something that is unique to them. And sometimes they struggle coming up with
the ideas.
And so using AI to give them some suggestions.
So brainstorming.
Yeah. I don't know whether this is quite
Yeah, go on.
what you were
No, that's perfect.
where you're going, but have you played with what its capability is in, you know, if they
Ask it to do the maths.
ask them a maths,
Everything I've seen many times, like I asked it to, it doesn't set them up right. No, so whenever I ask it to write questions, I'm like, oh, can you do intersection and find it, make it the midpoint or something? It can't find them. And then you talk to it and you tell it gets it wrong, and then it shoots out the same thing again. And it goes and does it again and has the same error. So it's still,
we had played with it early last year.
Yeah, okay, it hasn't changed.
But I understand that it will develop over time. But I wasn't sure how far it had come.
No, I haven't checked in a couple of months, but it hasn't, and which is good for us, I think.
Yeah.
Because we can go, well, you know.
At least you know their maths.
Yeah, the maths is fairly reliable. And maybe that's where I'm red in that area. I'm like, oh no, that one doesn't, you know, that one's not worth using. But I really like the idea about ideation. So like thinking about ideas, because that takes them forever. But you normally would get them, well, I do anyway, in mine, is I'll get a little small groups and they'll brainstorm some ideas, and then we might share some insights, and then, you know, because that's a skill in itself. But that's okay for them to chat to someone next to them about it. So why can't they chat to ChatGPT? And so that's the difference that I look at, is if they could have that conversation with their neighbour, then it is okay. It's ethical. If they ask their neighbour or the person next to them to, you know, write it for them, that's not ethical. And so that's where your line is. So I put together, and I talked to many people, but I used these two models. So I put links on these, so if you want to have a look at them later, if you haven't seen these two models. But I used both of these elements, a traffic light system, that's why I used traffic lights earlier, as well as looking at the different stages of assessments. Okay, now before I actually go into what I developed, it looks like it's going to go to the answer actually. Before, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give you a sheet because I don't want to show you what it looks like. Is we decided, so this is all the teachers together. There was a stage where, you can hold it if you want to. So we went with the teachers and we said, what stages are there of the assessment? Okay, we're still going to link to the concept that Adrian had where there's traffic lights. Okay, are we completely closed or are we completely open or are we kind of in the middle? But we wanted to break it down for each stage of the assessment. Okay, and I don't want to give answers to you, but what stages are there for a mathematical investigation? So we've got an investigation. What's the first stage before they even start?
Do that.
Do the maths, yeah?
Yeah.
Depending on the investigation, some of them they have to
Yeah.
install ideas first, but a lot of them we structure it for them. And
Yeah, and it tells them what to do, yeah? So there's going to be calculation. So then we would have to have something in there that talks about generating and making something. You have to do it yourself. Has to be your own work, would have to be mentioned, yeah? What's the next stage? What else have we got?
Well, then you start to analyse the mathematical results
Yeah?
and construct almost an essay.
Yes.
So we
need something about generating.
introduction,
Yes?
your gaps with your analysis,
Yeah.
and
And then you do your extensions and your limitations. Yeah. So we might need something that talks about extensions and limitations in there to make sure that they can use that for maybe ideas. Like there might need to be something in about ideas. Yeah.
Planning.
Oh, yes, love it.
They should start with planning.
Okay.
And sometimes, and
I did what they did.
We do like planning, yeah.
And you can use AI with planning, like what are steps to do this?
Yes.
And then that helps them, they don't, with that, and then they can discuss whether they're good steps or not.
But they make the choice. And that choice is the important bit. They're having that chat with ChatGPT, and I keep using it because we're chatting. But you have that chat, take that information, then you make your own choice. Yeah. It's not doing the work for them. I like that. So there is a lot of different steps, and I'm going to show you what we came up with, and I'm going to tell you one of them we're still working on. Okay. This is one that's used for all subjects. Okay. So you need to keep it as open, like it's quite open. In some subjects, I don't know, geography, history, whatnot, there is a research phase. For some of our investigations, there would also be a research phase. So we needed to say, is it okay for them to let the AI help them? Can the AI come in and actually, you can ask it, can you suggest some websites? Or can you suggest some websites and have a bit of a summary? Developing ideas. So that's what you were talking about, Michelle. Really that giving me suggestions. And I'll break these down a little bit more. Note-taking is the one that we're working on. It actually looks different now. And I'll talk through it. And people didn't end up using it when we did all the trials. They found most people going red because note-taking, the kids can do note-taking however they want to do note-taking. This is... so this one seems to be continued to change there. And then the final submission, there were 2 areas here that we're looking at. So I'm going to break this down a little so I can, and then feel free to ask questions. So this research phase, this is the red. Okay, you've got your library, you've got maybe your online textbook. I'm saying that I only want traditional methods. Okay, we are red. Whereas if I am in the amber light, right, I'm going to let you use some AI and you're going to ask the AI to suggest websites. Okay? And yes, it does have a little summary there, but this is all it is doing. Okay? Then when we go to green, well, can you please, you're asking the AI, can you tell me what the parameters of the exponential equation do? How do they impact the graph? And so we're getting it to tell us the answer. Now, what's the problem with this? Sometimes
It's wrong.
wrong. I haven't even read it, to be honest. I generated and went, yesterday. But there's, can't they read this from a textbook? Mm-hmm. They still have to trust the textbook, and I trust the textbook probably more than I trust this AI. But you've got to always think about were they allowed to do this beforehand? They were allowed to check a website and find information. So personally, I believe that if this is the research phase, they're not pulling this out, generating it and putting it in their assignment, they're learning, yeah? So in this phase here, you might go green. However, for our teachers, I might go, you know what, if you're red in this area, you tell the student that you're red. So on the task, on the sheet here, and I've only given you a blank one for now.
Sorry, Rebecca.
Yes.
So the previous slide that you had up when the before fluid in,
Yes, this one.
that's like the
This is what it is, yeah. So they would,
things for your tasks.
Yeah.
Decide for those different paths what you
Yes.
And this is the information give to the student.
yeah, so what happens, let me go back, is we will attach this sheet to your investigation and I'll go, I'm red here, amber here, this one, and then I might be to here. And the rest would just be white. So then you're telling the kid at the research phase, I'm this level. So you're being really specific about what you're open to. And then each teacher attaches this. For a test, I don't attach it because it's a controlled environment. Like they don't need to look at all the red. But for an investigation, I need to be really specific and I need to actually explicitly tell them. I can't just attach this because they don't read it. I need to be able to go, okay, for this one here, did you know we're at the research phase? Have a look at our AI sheet. We're in here. This is what I want to be. You know, remember you can do this. And you can add. And so we talk a lot and down the bottom, these rules here, we keep adding to them. And it links well to what you've been doing, Kylie, but they need to reference what they're doing. So if they had a conversation on an AI, if you can get a link, you put the link in your references. If you can't get a link, you could at least do a screenshot and they've got a huge list of appendices. So you're showing that conversation, because if we can give marks for the conversation they're having like smart conversations and really digging a bit deeper. Does that clarify that a bit more?
Thank you.
That's right. Good question. So these are all the ones that you would highlight the level. So the research phase, you know, you could be completely, this is not marked. This is them learning. Don't we want to be open? And maybe I've been looking at this for longer, so I'm more green than I used to be. So, you know.
I think also in that research
go.
phase, sorry to...
Yeah, go, I love it.
But it also helps develop the kids to start thinking independently and start working independently and less relying on us telling them what they need to do and how to structure it. I often get asked, do I get a scaffold? What's going to be, how do I set this up? Well, if we can teach them how to use AI to help them, then they should be then able to do that independently.
Yes.
Instead of relying on us so much.
And I love going around the room. As soon as we opened it up and had this, these guidelines, the kids would say, oh, Miss, can I actually use that in this step? Oh, is this how I actually reference it? Like they're actually opening, you know, like before they were hiding it, you'd see them turn their screen, you're like, oh. Whereas now they're like, oh, is this okay before they even start it? So they're learning what ethical is. And I know that seems simple, but it's not, because it's a new world.
Yep.
So that's the research phase. The developing ideas phase is so important. Okay, you need to tell them that they're allowed to have that conversation if you're open to it. However, I've still got a couple of teachers, not so many, that will go, you know what, I'm marking this. So I might be marking creativity, so it's not maths. Or maybe, we do mark creativity, but and so they might say, no, I don't want any AI. I want you to think from your own ideas, or maybe we'll set up a group discussion because I want to be able to hear them. Okay, so you might go, this is the only way. I'm red in this area. No AI whatsoever, just what I can hear in the room. Or you might be in this yellow phase where you go, all right, and I've done limitations as the example. And so it lists a whole list of possible limitations. Now a student can't get an A for that criteria on the rubric if they just take this from here and rewrite it in their own words, because it's not in depth. It's not applying it to the problem that they've got in the investigation. Okay, because for you to get an A, you have to go, okay, well, the material wastage would impact the results in this way, and here's my calculations to support that. Does that make sense? So it's not, so we don't have to worry, in my personal opinion anyway, it doesn't, this is just your basics, I guess. Whereas in the green, you could ask it to break it down a little bit more. I want to know a bit more about baking uniformity. Can you really break that down? Are they learning by reading this? Hopefully, I love that, Anna. I love that. Yeah, they should be. So isn't that our goal as teachers? We want them to learn more. So if this is going to do that, as long as they don't, and our Turnitin hopefully will spot if they cut and paste, that's still not ethical. But as long as they're learning and going, oh, and then tweaking it and showing your journey, you can see that they would have learnt from it and what they've taken. And so making sure that they're not afraid of that, I think is important. But you decide depending on the task, because some you might want that creativity and you might want to see it. So that's this one. But I think it's really important. Limitations, we had a lot of people when we were like, oh, limitations can be done.
Yeah.
Whereas I like it for extensions. That's really, really good too. Because they spend lessons and lessons trying to decide and they haven't actually, there's no output. Note taking, I'm not going to spend long on this because at the moment we've got a little team working on this. So I think we're going to move it to creation. Because it just wasn't used. Everyone kept going, no, this is not relevant to their tasks, and that wasn't just maths. But it's one to think about though, because it kind of fits in the other areas, which is why it's going to become redundant. So obviously you can take note taking using a template or just however you want to do it. Note taking could be used in Word. Did you know there's a dictate? So instead of, and do watch out because sometimes the kids will do this and then that's how they'll write their essay because they take it from a video. And you're like, oh, why does that sound really similar to the video we watched? And then Turnitin might not spot it because it's audio. But anyway, it can dictate, so write a script. And then, so that could be your Amber. And then from Green, you can ask it to do a summary from the script. But this summary could go back to your research phase, really, couldn't it? You find information, then you translate it, and as long as they're not copying and pasting it. But this is in development, this one. These two here at the end, okay, probably could be written as one, which is why I've done them this way, because they really continue to join together. If you do one at red, then the other one's probably red, okay? So in this one here, feedback and editing, you might be like, I don't want you to use any AI. No AI at all. You just need to, you can talk to other people, but it is all your own work. This is where a test would fit. Okay? You probably wouldn't let them have peer feedback that, hey, I don't know what your tests look like. But it would still be very much. Yeah. And so if you had a test, you probably couldn't highlight any of these. And we do have some going, that's just, not relevant in this case because you wouldn't have editing. If you're doing that in a test. Anyway, submit your work in its final form without AI. So it's really just reiterating what level of AI in the second one. But we found that we really wanted to make sure that it's really obvious the final submission is your own work. Whereas in the Amber one, we're saying you can use spell checker. This suggests things, doesn't it? It generates possible answers. So technically it's an AI. Grammarly is the same as long as it's not the advanced version that converts the format of it. So it just suggests a couple of tweaks and things. So this one here is more in the Amber. And so...
Should read.
That's all right, Tom. So we find most people end up putting theirs in this Amber colour, okay? Because they're saying, look, I'm open to little bits. I'm happy with that.
Inspected span.
So there's that level. For us, I think this is perfect. Like, there's nothing wrong with this level. Okay, whereas when you're in the green, you might allow, and this happens more in English and other more language-rich subjects, people are using that Quillbot. They're writing it and then they're putting it in and then it's paraphrasing and just simplifying the language sometimes, or they might use ChatGPT to give them feedback. So as long as it's not generating, we don't even have in the list generating text for them because that's not what we want. But in that note-taking one, we're considering at the moment putting a creation one because this is covering other subjects. Could you have a generation of images on some subjects? That's what they're meant to be doing. For art, they might be using it, For us, I don't know, maybe it's our new technology. When it says electronic technology, maybe but that's way down in the future. So I think that there is a creation phase that probably needs to go in this, but it is new.
So in
Quillbot.
Quillbot, so they've written that.
This and this outputs. Yeah. And so you so I can't remember the right click or left. Anyway, you go through all the suggestions. So it suggests alternatives for you. And so you just decide whether to select them or not. So that's what all the colour is.
Right.
But it doesn't have a link. So like ChatGPT and Perplexity and all of those seem to have this link that you can take. This one here doesn't. So they would have to have extra samples that are put in their appendices or maybe a screenshot to show that they've done it. There's other things that they would have to do to show evidence that that's the journey they've done. For us, I found that it actually doesn't improve their marks, doesn't actually make their mark, like it probably drops them if anything because it's not direct. Whereas in mathematics, we're quite often wanting just get to the point. So I won't advertise, like I'll tell them and be honest. I know sometimes you use this for other things because you're trying to get your language smoother or whatever word they want to use. But for mathematics, we just want straight to the point. We don't need that because we're not looking for grammar and well, we are, but
Or to call land.
yeah, we just want the answer. Yeah. So that's the guidelines. Are there any questions about those? So I think for us, we will continue to change them. Where like we've already looking at that note taking and trying to play with that to kind of, and it's been, how many versions have you seen, Kylie? She's like, again.
Yeah, that's been
But I think it's telling you that the world's changing, and if we go, this is what it is, then we're not actually opening our eyes. And so we need to go, okay, well, the kids are trying to do this and that, and so let's be open. But creation is definitely an area that I think needs to be broken down a bit more. So our questions for the group are, what are our challenges with AI in the maths classroom? So should we start one at a time? Yeah, not one at a time, but like one question at a time.
Yeah.
Are we having challenges? You talked about some already, Kate.
Yeah, I'm having a lot of students that have used it for creation.
Yeah. Like of the maths, they're actually using it to.
Well, not for the maths, it's for the writing.
Yeah, okay.
The context of the assignments are good enough that you basically can't get it to do the maths for you.
Yeah.
But they just don't want to spend whatever do the writing themselves. So the introduction and the explaining into assumptions and limitations, those sorts of things that are generating a lot. And it's that battle between, it's often getting picked up for students that English isn't their first language.
Okay.
We've got quite a few of those students. And so trying to be delicate in that matter, to be, not falsely accusing someone.
Yeah, of course.
It's also just even just kids flat out denying it. Our kids aren't particularly
I think we're like
have evidence in front of you, like you have evidence in front of you, they're like, no, it's your
Yes.
So yeah, that's definitely an area we're really struggling with.
And so do you think, just to put ideas out, because I know when mine find challenges with limitations, for example, having those groups where they talk about it and then they can brainstorm ideas really helped them, because then they had confidence in what they were writing. Do you think it's lack of confidence in knowing what they've got to do, so they outsource?
I think it's a little bit of that. I think it's more time management.
Yeah, okay. This one, yeah, that could be. That one makes sense, isn't it?
Yeah, that one makes sense.
Yeah. And then what do you do with that? That's delving into different problems. Yeah.
And I mean, that's a big part of the challenge here anyway, is that they take so long to get through the maths, and they never listen to any of the recommended timelines to do with the maths.
Yeah.
And then even if I want to do activities in class, I'm going to be building their literacy. I've got a class of 20 at 25 different points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard, no, and I'm sure you're doing amazing. Yeah. Are there any other challenges people are having we haven't, or that they're aware of?
I think, for me, what challenged most, and it end up in men's classroom or science classroom, the ones that I teach, is that we don't have it criteria from the school. So at your school, you have this, so everybody's basing
They know what they're doing.
this.
Yeah.
So I've been asking, do we have any policy, anything in regards to use of AI?
Yeah.
And I get blank faces. Yeah. So that's it's scary because ignoring is not the best part.
Yeah. And this is why we started with it, because we need clarity. Teachers want clarity, students want clarity, parents want clarity. You know, even just calling home and telling them, oh, by the way, this is not allowed. They're like, oh, like they don't know. You know, so now we've got much more, and especially, you know, with your guidelines, like they've gone out to the parents.
Yeah, so our parents have got access to that flow chart that we put together. So it's transparency right through.
Yeah. And that's what we've found on our journey, is that transparency is so important.
Yeah, and I think that's what challenge. Like, because they reviews. I remember last year teaching men's, I had a cohort of students that had English as second language also. They had to do the investigations for integrated learning. Like you pick up and read it and it's like, this is not your writing, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that links back to the checkpoints are really important. And maybe you could move to verbal of certain things, I guess, but it makes it hard.
Something I find really difficult is actually for a learning perspective, and putting like a traditional style, like the traditional method versus an AI kind of thing, and try it in a thoughtful way. Like when is it better to use the traditional kind of, like the Cornell method of note taking is always going to be better because it encourages conceptual thinking. So just having something automatically generate is not as useful. But then other tasks that can be useful for them to like guide their own learning, to figure things out. And just knowing all of that straight off the plate and to make decisions it's just impossible to like get your head around all the different facets that continue to grow. Versus like really trying to do the best thing in terms of learning for students.
Yeah. It's very challenging.
I think while the teachers and the schools haven't caught up with it, the kids have gone ahead, and that's the main problem. Because I think if we were to take them through a process like something like that, and teach them that this is a positive way of using that as a tool, rather than just try to get it to write your discussion or whatever. But I think you're a long way ahead of probably most schools.
We're trying.
In that.
But we won't ever be, like, I don't think you can be ahead. You can get close, but it's hard because with all the technology coming out.
It's changing so quickly.
And the kids, I learnt so much from all my counselling with the kids, because there's apps that I didn't even know existed, and I'm like, so they're going, oh yeah, that one, I've seen that. Okay, all right. But it's handy, because I think those conversations helped generate everything, and know that we needed to have links, and knew that we needed to do this and that, and support the kids, because as long as they're using it ethically, like, it should save them time, which should fix part of the problem, hopefully. But advertising definitely has worked really well with all my classes. Is to go, okay, we're at this stage, these are your options, because this is our top level, you're allowed to do this. And so you're actually, when we were talking about our traffic lights before, how open are we? Yes, I advertise what is available, because I want them to learn. I don't want them to leave and go, I don't know what AI was, it was banned.
Yeah, and I think that it gives them that advantage too, if they're using it and they're using it ethically, and they can get a better understanding of what they've got to put together. Why not let them use it? We're holding them back and holding their opportunities back if we don't. But I think being a part of building the flowchart, building these ideas in the school, has opened my eyes to it. And I ran a lesson yesterday with my Year 12 Essential Maths kids. They're writing their assignment, and I would not have said, hey, let's use AI to generate ideas on how to write an analysis. for your results. And I'm sitting, so it's come out in the classroom and they're like, oh, are we allowed to use this? I'm like, yeah, let's talk about your prompting. Make sure your prompting is ethical, what kinds of prompts, and then you don't ask it to generate it for you, don't ask it to write it for you. But
tips.
Give you ideas on what does reasonableness mean, because essential maths and trying to unpack what reasonableness means in their answers and that sort of stuff is, and that's found that looking at that started their conversations in their little groups, and then generating those conversations in their little groups. I'm looking forward to reading the stuff that they've put together since yesterday to tomorrow. We'll see if they've got anything together. But it was good. It's, gives them a starting point.
And it does link with our green in this area because it's asking for tips, and we're deliberately going, should still seek human feedback, obviously, but the content's suggestions. So it's not creating. So really making sure that you break it down. And but I think, and this is one thing I didn't talk about with the sheet, is I think we're going to end up eventually with this green line becoming darker green. Like, I don't think, it's just going to continue what we're open to because we realise we can, the tools can do different things. So how can we use it? And I know we started talking about this, is where can we put it? So we've talked about limitations and assumptions. We talked about extensions, feedback on what we've written.
Yeah, so a great way to do some of their stuff is they can actually chuck in their analysis into ChatGPT or whatever, an AI, and ask it to generate feedback and give them ideas on how they could improve that based on the performance standards. It's really important, though, that you have that in your appendix to make sure that it's...
Not copy and paste.
You're checking what they're doing. But hopefully, we were having a conversation in our AI committee meeting last week, and we're hoping that by encouraging the kids to use it as a drafting tool, it kind of will give us more time, because I know I spend a lot of time drafting maths assignments, but the RE teachers doing integrated learning and research project and biology, those subjects that have got huge amounts of content that they've got to read, if the kids are then able to use these tools to draft their own work ethically, saves us with the never-ending stuff we have to do. So
it definitely would help with spelling and grammar, the small stuff that they should be able to do if Grammarly's not spotting it as well, which is really handy. Any other areas? Because I think they're the main ones for the maths investigation, I think.
I think one problem actually is that it's who cares about its use, right? So there are some kids who are just half this fine. So something that is generated by AI that we know is not that good, but it's
but it'll pass.
Then that's fine, and they're kind of going to end up getting more and more behind because they're becoming less and less engaged with content.
They're not learning. And that's the risk. But this is why the checkpoints are going to be really important. And so the task design is incredibly important. You've got to actually think when you're writing a task, hang on, is this one that I can just put into chat and it'll tell me exactly what to, then that's not the task you want to do. Have these, human elements. Reflection is really important.
To challenge.
Link it to something that's your school maybe, or something that'll have particular things, so that way if they cut and paste you can go, well, hang on a second, this doesn't make sense. And the checks that you were saying, Kylie, about getting it to ask a couple of questions, write a few questions you can ask them, so if you do spot them. But they're really easy to spot when they've plagiarized or used AI, I think. The waffle and the fluffy and so it's just a bit fair, it's a bit, and you're like, that's not how maths is written, just go direct, don't overthink it.
The other thing is if they start talking about something completely different and you're like, hang on, this doesn't match up, and they do with their maths results, because AI will take it in one direction, which is not the direction we're expecting them to take it in, and you go, it doesn't quite work, hang on, let's
and
have
then
a conversation.
And what you've been talking about in class, if that doesn't you can really see.
It's fascinating. If you give juniors their structure on how to submit an assignment, so an investigation, you've got your own little quirks as a teacher of what you're expecting. And then it comes in looking very different. And you're like, come from a different class or a different teacher. So
Yeah.
you can spot it straight away.
And I like that though. I often do a little twerk, like a tweak with mine, so that way I'm going,
like
no,
a
it's
little
mine.
signature
I've
at the
told my
bottom.
class,
Yeah.
this is the way I like it. But I think,
find it funny just how flowery and emphatic it'll be.
yeah.
Like I'm doing the round robin sports dominance matrix.
Oh yeah, yeah.
12 general kids. And this kid submitted something to like, I'm taking it with a pinch of salt, but turn it in saying it's like 47% AI generated.
So it could be.
Yeah. I've spoken to the kid and he's more or less admitted to,
Using bits.
using bits. Yeah, I think anyway. But like there's one sentence here that's, this research takes place in the context of a thriving sport.
Sorry.
Like the intensity of competitiveness meets the precision of statistical performance.
But if they'd written something like, this is the matrix that represents this, like you would probably go, oh great, moving on. So why bother?
Are you trying to get to write some stories surrounding
Yes.
round robin Hollywood?
Yeah, but if you know what you do, well, what I found is, can you please write this for a year 8 student? And then it'll change it to be simpler language. It gets better. So you just bring your year level down.
I would have to write those things.
No, you don't, but I do. I'm like, when I want to write, but it does. It will simplify the language, but it takes a bit.
I was trying to get like a
Yeah.
risk assessment kind of plan.
Oh,
And I was like, I sort of normally do it. I'm like,
yeah, let's get it started.
It would be a good way to start it.
Yeah.
Okay, but please put on this specific topic of risk. And I was like, well, just back to that flowery language.
No, that's just that's who it is. It's his personality. But I must have a disclaimer though, is when I started writing the guidelines, I did ask chat what it would do. And I, said these are my categories, and it started, and that's where it, I guess, delved from, which is good. But I think knowing what having something in your schools is going to help, because it will help in both levels, and both are so important.
Yeah.
I don't think you can do this one without what Kylie's done.
So we're moving into doing something like this. I'd love to get student feedback and student ideas and put them forward too. So what is it that they need for guidance on what's allowed and what's not? So yeah, we're definitely heading into that direction. This year.
Macro level, what are each of the sectors in the education field that are come out with any state with any policy or any?
SACE are open.
Yeah.
University, Australian University and tertiary they've released a full policy statement that's quite long. There's a lot of detail in it.
Yeah.
And
There is, did I put the link? Oh, hang on. I do have a
if you'd have a look at it and be like, skips past some things, but look at the ideas that are in there. Like,
Yeah, and there's a lot of different policies, isn't there? Like the ones I've added, this one came out, I reckon it was the end of last year, after we'd started, which I really liked. And this is what will happen after you put something together. You'll see lots of different people coming up with things, and you'll be like, oh, they used this element of what I was thinking. And well, and so tweak what you're doing. Don't, so I quite liked that they actually started, but again, I still quite like what we're doing. I haven't moved too much, but this one here, and that's got a link when we send you the PowerPoint. The other one is the framework for AI use in schools. So this one here is worth having a look at. So it's got lots of the advice that they suggest. I think that's my last one. But there's so much out there.
There's huge amounts.
Like you said, the universities have got policies. Your school might be in the development of one. I know we've got one. But I think making sure that you're focused on it's enhancing learning. Okay, so, you don't put it in there just because you want to tick the box. It's not like the general we want to, everyone knows what I mean. It's not just ticking that, ticking the box. It's actually going, okay, if I put this in my assessment, will it enhance learning? And if it's going to inspire them more to come up with new ideas and test the mathematics and then write about the math, then yes. If it is going to do the maths for them, so they don't have to learn, no. So then I think if you've got that clarity and you're clear with the students about that, then I think that kicks things pretty open. Yeah. I feel like
pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for us? I think you can.
Yeah, so this is powerful.
Yes, we 100% will, and the documents
Yeah,
as
I'm
well in
gonna have
Word
a look at
format, because that way you can play with them. If you want updates on how we're going, feel free to email us.
Yeah.
Because we are happy to do that. And the other thing we have is this one here. Look, email addresses, just in case you don't have mine. Or Kylie's, you can, and if you have a couple of minutes to just do a bit of a survey for us, we would love it. Just so we can,
Look at him, feedback.
and feedback. We love to grow, don't we? Oh, we like to learn too. But it just gives us a bit of a gauge. But yeah, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.